Welcome to Relics of War, episode 51. I'm your host, Shongaku, and joining me today is Cole, Christian,
Hello.
and Spirit.
Hiya.
And this week, we are going to be talking about some news. We're going to cover some news. We'll be talking about what we've been up to in Guild Wars 2, some speculation, a bar brawl that will hopefully be more violent than last week's. And we actually have some viewer questions that we'll be answering, which will be super exciting. I'm looking forward to that. So we'll go ahead and get started with the news. And there's been quite a few things on the ArenaNet, on Guild Wars 2's forums, the ArenaNet's been talking about. One of those things was third-party software and multi-boxing. And we have an update on their official policy on multi-boxing. Ryan, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, pretty much anything that's going to have any potential to facilitate botters, they're going to have to smack down for now. And I was really sad about that because I was just about to start using this one called combat mode. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, I haven't seen it.
No, tell me about it.
Oh, it was awesome. What it did was it made it so that, and you can look it up, Guild Wars 2 plus combat mode. What it does is it makes it so you don't have to hold right click really ever. Your target is always right in front of you, so it's just mouse looking. And he made it, I mean, the whole thing was worked out great, and you could toggle that on and off while you were playing as well. So
basically, if you it follows whatever you have selected in terms of the camera.
It doesn't really, there's no selection at all. It's just whatever's right in front of you, that's where your attack is going to go and all that. It's like if you're playing an FPS for real. So, you know, wherever you're looking, that's where the shot's going to happen. Right. That's how he had it set up. And there were a lot of people with like carpal tunnel and issues like that that were really, really rooting for this thing. But the tools used to make it happen, I guess, opened it up so that it would be really hard to police spotting. So ArenaNet's shooting it down for now, and that's unfortunate. I really hope, like, if it's that big of a deal to everybody, and I think it should be, maybe ArenaNet could start working on their own version of it, or work with that guy, or hire him. Yeah, could hire him.
Yeah.
Well,
that does sound good. I was noticing in the last couple. There's one day in particular where I must have been doing a lot of high stress, right click holding pressure, and I noticed my arm was a little worse for wear at the end of it.
Yeah, so, my Razor Naga, my old one, I busted the right click on it. There's this little thing that just fixes it in there. Yeah, so I've had to have mine replaced because you right click so much in games. This was before Guild Wars 2, but another thing about Guild Wars 2 is in order to make things more fluid, they make it so that targeting happens on mouse down, not mouse up. That's why a lot of times people will find themselves, well, I should clarify, right click is not, it's mouse up. But so there's all this talk about targeting and why people are like, you know what, I just want combat mode instead. That way, if I want to attack something, it's right there in front of me. I don't have to hold right click to switch where that is.
It also makes circle strafing easier.
Yeah, it was really cool. You got to see that video.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, so basically, ArenaNet's general policy in the past and with Guild Wars 2 is that these kind of programs that would basically give someone undue advantage, or mean that they are effectively not playing the game anymore, they will not allow, because in effect you are a bot, just not as far down the route of complete automation.
And this bleeds into multi-boxers and the combat mode, because even though that's not what those do, it makes it hard to police those that do.
Right.
Something like text mod. I bet if text mod comes out for Guild Wars 2, if people start using that, they're probably going to let that go, because there's no way you can use that to, affect the game.
They were they're pretty much okay without officially saying they're okay with text mod in Guild Wars, and the only place where it could potentially become advantageous to using it is, I remember you could get a text mod, I never tried this myself, which put lines on health bars for targets and party members at like 75%, 50%, and 25%, so you could know exactly when the health shifted because of all those skills that respond to those conditions, and that would potentially give you an advantage in PvP over someone that didn't use that. But it's it's minor to a degree, but still it might be enough that competitively, you would definitely not be allowed to use that.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing that I found on there is that they did officially say that multi-boxing, which is the base form of multi-boxing, is where you hit one button and you can control like 2 or 3 characters with a single keyboard simultaneously. That is officially not accepted by ArenaNet. So if you're going to run multiple characters, you're going to have to run multiple keyboards as well, which apparently some people are doing and they're recording themselves doing, which I need to check
Whoa.
out some of those videos. Yeah, there's a few people that are like trying to do 3 keyboard character controls.
Wow.
Full
You
Guardian.
can do that. Hats off to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Figure that out.
Yeah, well, the Guardian's easy because you just get 3 keyboards and chuck them down the stairs and you're good to go.
No, I remember I saw on the forum, I think someone was talking about multi-boxing and seeing 5 warriors running around in SPVP,
Yeah.
all following the same route and all doing the same attacks, and how that was clearly unfair. Which is true.
But you'd think
If
you'd
you
be able
can
to.
do that by yourself with 5 separate keyboards, then hats off to you, and I give it a crap
Yeah.
basically because you're far
Absolutely.
better than me. So
Although, you know what? You can easily beat that sort of build if it's 5 of them, unless if it's an 8v8. But if it's a 5v5 tournament, you can easily beat them just by circle capping and evading them.
Yeah. I mean, if they're all at the same point, you could just cap the other 2.
Right, and they always have to be at the same point. And if they
I
never
think this
kill
is
you,
coming from the mindset of kill everything else, not cap everything else.
which would be, you would never win that way.
Mhm.
I mean, if you had a competent team, they just say, "Oh, multi-boxer. Well, we'll cap all 3 points, and when he comes to a point, we'll just leave."
So the other stuff that is included in all this third-party program and multi-boxing type stuff are the macro, and this is always something that it pops up in map chat a lot. People talking about macros and bots and that kind of thing. And ArenaNet and Guild Wars as well was basically no to macros completely because it's another form of being able to bot, and it's the same in Guild Wars 2 now, isn't it?
Do we have any feedback on? I saw someone asking a question about a Razer Naga, and so for my job, I use a Razer Naga and AutoCAD, and macros do me a world of good, but it's another piece of software that affects everything else. So you could tell, if I hit the shift and then the 1 on the thumb pad there, that actually means do all these things. Are we allowed to do that, or is it possible?
No,
I'm
'cause
imagining we're going to get hit for doing that.
That's the definition of a macro. If you're using the Naga and just using the buttons as they are with modifiers as they are, as if you had extra buttons on your keyboard, that is fine. If you're then triggering that to do multiple things, that is then a macro, and that is what's not allowed.
How do they monitor that, though? Because that Razer Synapse software is always running on my computer, and I always wonder, should I be shutting that off before I go to play? And can
I
they
don't
tell
know.
what
I
an
think
input does?
It'll be to do probably, and I'm just thinking, I have no idea about this, but just thinking of how you might track a macro is the speed with which actions are undertaken. So when you trigger a macro, it sends all the inputs of what keystrokes you have set up that macro for, and does it like super fast. You can customize it to put delays in, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I do. So
but
if
I
it's
think
the
it's
same
still so much
delay-
quicker, still so much quicker than a person that they can probably track that in a way in terms of actions per minute.
And if it sees the same millisecond delay, like to the exact millisecond,
Yeah.
every time you do a thing,
Right.
that might be how they. But
It's
you know
the
what?
timing.
I think it's better to be cautious. I'm going to start just shutting it off
Yeah.
when I play.
They
Well,
don't.
I mean, I've got mine up as well for just the death adder, and you can make macros with that as well.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
any Razer mouse or keyboard has that program, and it's active all the time.
So they talk about this in Guild Wars 1 quite a bit. The software that you're running isn't the issue, and so you can keep that running. That's not the problem. What they do track is primarily the regularity with which skills are executed. So even if you put in like a 2-second delay between skills, it will, if it happens the exact same way X number of times in a row, then it gets flagged by the servers. So that's part of the analytics that they collect on Guild Wars 2. So
That'll
you can
be
have,
just-
they don't look at the software on your computer, they look at how skills are triggered.
because that's the same way they'll be able to identify and track bots, because they'll be using that kind of repetitive input.
Right. Well, they're going to be able to track bots a lot of different ways because the bots are also hacking or location hacking or speed hacking and telling the server, "Oh, I'm here. Now I'm over here. Now I'm over here," which is kind of annoying. It's really hilarious. Teleporting rangers everywhere.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, don't do that because a lot of people are complaining right now about the botting, but that's going to go away pretty quick because ArenaNet is basically just gathering all the data they possibly can. So we probably won't see any action for a month, and then all of a sudden Doom is just going to wreck his way through.
Well, they're constantly banning the reported bots and whichever bots they can identify now. And the more bots pop up and the more bots they ban, the more they know about how to catch and identify bots.
I thought they were actually holding off on the bans because if they do each one, then the people who are botting and hacking will be able to figure out what it was that put them in, and they can adapt. Right. But if they just in one fell swoop just say, "You're all gone," they go, "Okay,
well, they
all
did
that
say
money
in the
was
forum
They
that
did say, yep.
banned 1,600 accounts in the last week." So.
But see, if they're banning the reported bots, then those aren't necessarily giving the botters too much information. They're just saying, "Oh, look at how blatantly obvious a teleporting ranger is."
Yeah, that's true. The more subtle ones are probably still being our personal sources of data for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the problems that goes hand in hand with botting is, of course, account hacking. And while botters may not be hacking accounts, a lot of those companies that do bot quite regularly also buy like hacked accounts and that sort of thing. And one of the things that, of course, happens when that occurs is everything gets wiped out. What's ArenaNet doing to take care of that, Spirit?
I have no idea. Somebody else tell me.
Ryan, what are they doing?
So you're asking what do they do about accounts that have been flagged and that they got to deal with?
Yeah. Moving on to the next section. Apparently that was too smooth of a connection of a connecting
I
segue.
picked it up and run with it, but you kept asking everyone else.
I'm sorry,
so
Christian. Oh, all right, Squirrel.
About it is that they don't have rollbacks in place right now, but they will soon.
Yeah. So it's coming.
So I know people were wondering whether or not they even had the tech for it because they weren't ever saying anything about rollbacks. But it would have surprised me if they didn't. Because
I've been rolled back.
You don't make an MMO without rollback tech.
Yeah. That rollback was a blanket rollback, though, Cole.
Yes.
So it wasn't.
It's a different kind of rollback, definitely.
Yeah.
I wonder what that was all about because I saw that various servers were having issues with that.
When was this?
2 weeks ago?
Probably about a week ago.
Oh, yeah, a week ago. Yeah. It was last Sunday, I think.
I got to hit 4K on my thief twice.
Oh.
I really missed when it was or what had happened. I obviously wasn't keeping track of what characters were where and what I'd achieved and hadn't, and I guess nothing was really missing. So
I never got to talk about this whole thing with my thief, did I? In the NPC on the show?
No, you haven't mentioned it yet.
Okay. Should I work that in now? It's totally not smooth.
Let's do it. You know, sometimes we have amazingly subtle segues, and then other times the segues are just like a guardian hitting you with the number 4 hammer skill.
Yeah. And if you remember my hosting in the past, it would be like, you know, we'd be sitting here talking about account hacking and all that, and something like, speaking of NPCs, would be like, dude, we were talking about NPCs. Well, now we are. So anyway, in the first couple weeks of playing Guild Wars 2, got my Guardian to 80 and all that, and we were getting ready to do a raw and stuff, but we hadn't done it yet. And Evie, someone in our guild, he tells Lacey, hey, there's an NPC out here you guys should go check out. So I went to the gate of Ara, and there was this Sylvari, or actually, no, there was nothing there. There was an event going on. So I'm like, all right, I don't know what's going on, but it'd be nice to get into Ara anyway. So we're doing this event, we're killing all these undead and stuff. And you gotta remember, Ara is the capital city of Ord. So I'm sitting there fighting all this stuff, and I get pretty much punched in the butt by this champion risen. And it says Tactician Cole. And I'm like, is this like a mirror image thing that we're like fighting over here? You know, there's like doppelgangers and stuff. I'm like, maybe. And I'm going, no, because Evie told us to come here. So I'm like, oh my god. So I kill the thing, and then down over over here is this, an NPC's body, and it says Vigil Tactician Cole, and I'm like, yes. But I did at this time I didn't know what his profession was, so I go over there and I start rezzing him. And the moment he pops up, he's got a bow on his back, and I'm like, "You guys made a ranger? Are you kidding?" I was like, "No way!" Everybody else gets these shout-outs, and then for just a second, this icon appeared next to his name. I'm not sure how often you see that on NPCs because I don't usually, but it was a thief icon for a second. I was like, "That's awesome." Okay, so yeah, now I've got this. What's really cool about him is that he doesn't shut up after the event's over. He just keeps talking and talking, and he sounds real dopey. So I love it though, and he'll tell you all about Zaitan and why we need to take him out and stuff. So I thought that was pretty sweet, and I'm wanting people to keep an eye out for other NPCs that are homages to community members. I know that like Elizabeth Clare from Guildcast has 400 Norn chicks in World Record, and there's a centaur named Ruby, and Tiger Feet has one in the Black Citadel. So yeah, if I could just like someday do a blog post with a picture of all these guys, that'd be awesome. Anyway, my thief is now
We saw a bunch of
What's
others
up?
in Ore
There are
as
a
well.
lot in Ore. Melchior,
Like,
Scotland, Varine. Can't think of a whole bunch of them
I
right
think
now, but I know they're out
There's another
there.
one of Elizabeth's there as well, probably.
I know she's got 3 at least.
What did
I
she
think.
do? How did she get this? That's nonsense.
She's amazing.
Number one fangirl.
I think she
probably
might be, yeah. Although she and Tiger and Izzy would probably have to fight it out.
That's what I'm saying.
That's true. I haven't spotted anything. I don't know. Someone will know, I guess, if there's an NPC for Izzy out there.
I'm looking because I talked to her about it. So I'm trying to find it.
Alrighty.
Specifically, Shadow's Embrace. Look at me. Anyway, so
Yeah.
my player character, the thief, looks just like this NPC too, which is every Sylvari Vigil character. So he
And
looks
I
like
remember when we talked ages ago about what race we'd prefer, Sylvari was one of the ones that you were kind of.
Yes, I was planning to make a Sylvari thief, so somebody, God forbid, was paying attention to me. That's
Yay! And that's why we love ArenaNet.
yes.
Sorrow's did you say Sorrow's Embrace or Shadow's Embrace?
Did I say Shadows? It's Sorrow's Embrace, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I said
Yeah.
Shadows Embrace. I'm
So you think Izzy has a character in that dungeon, maybe?
It's the rumor was that it could be in there, so I still need to go in there and look. I hate that dungeon. So
Well, the good thing is they've been updating the dungeon rewards. What do you guys, Spirit? What have you heard about that?
I know that it's now significantly more tokens for each run. I think it's 60 for each explorable per day. So like you could run path 1 of the explorable gets 60, path 2 of the explorable gets 60, but if you do path 1 again, it's going to be less. And then there's decreasing reward for repeated runs, or if you complete them excessively speedy, I think it was under 30 minutes, you might get diminished reward. But other than that, great improvements for especially people looking for armor. It knocked it down from 46 runs to something like 8 to 10, I think, for an armor.
Nice.
Yeah.
And with the diminishing returns, I know some people were saying that that's actually punishing you for being too efficient through the dungeons. Christian, what did John Peters had something to say about that, I think.
Let me just pull it up.
All right.
But my thoughts on that are that, well, so he says it's with regard to that super fast quote, so to speak, in terms of your returns going down for repeating a dungeon really quickly, which is to prevent farming. And the counter to that is that the people farming dungeons are saying, well, we're just really efficient. We're obviously doing this skillfully enough to do this really quickly. Why are we therefore being punished for being skillful? And so John Peters basically says, plain and simple, the system is a safety net for stopping crazy farming when people find exploits that make each run super fast. So I think what it comes down to is that these kinds of speeds are generally as a result of skipping sections or finding some kind of workaround for something that you shouldn't be doing in the dungeon in a way, or just kind of shortcutting some of the content and then repeating that over and over. And he says, for clarity, super fast means less than 30 minutes, and even then you must hit that speed multiple times in a row before you start seeing any impact.
Oh, okay. And one thing that they're also doing, is it sounds like, is they're going to be adding in tokens that drop throughout the runs. Now, you guys had a few runs this weekend that you weren't able to complete. So tell us about that.
I need to get under the table first.
It's okay. Seeing Squirrel Rant and Spirit Rage is actually not that terrifying. Although Spirit Rage, the skill from Guild Wars 1, is kind of annoying.
Yes, it is.
And terrifying.
We took a crack at Crucible of Eternity explorable mode, and we did the front door path because I was like, hey, we're trapped in here. Let's just go back out the front door. That sounds like a clever move. And so, of course, with the new change to tokens, you only get more at once at the end rather than regularly from chests, which at first I was like, hey, cool, it means if I miss a chest accidentally, I don't miss out on tokens. Plus, we're getting more tokens. So, yay, let's go do an explorable. And it didn't work out too well for us.
No, we ran into 2 or 3. Well, there was actually a champion destroyer that mopped the floor with us. There's all kinds of, I don't know, I think destroyers are poorly balanced, but we ran into him in a room full of fire traps. He dropped AoE and crablings on us. So he was a major annoyance. And
there were a couple of bosses.
Decided we could run through there. There were what?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, yeah, we couldn't get through there. And then we attempted to run through to the next boss, but the waypoint was way too far back, so it ended up just being incredibly frustrating and unable to get past it. And it's not like we ran it with a group of 5 people. We all know each other really well. We played together before. There was just a giant massive explosion, but that's okay. And so it's not like we were inexperienced or anything. It was a coordinated, well-done group that could not get through. So it was kind of a pain in the ass. I would have appreciated some tokens for the effort. We spent about 2.5 hours in there. We made it through the bosses before that just fine. It was the 2 that held us up.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
The trouble with that destroyer boss was that all the other bosses, they'd been quite AoE heavy, but they'd give you time to dodge out, just enough time to react and dodge out of it or run out of the AoE. This guy, no chance. He throws down AoE. You can't know where it's going because it's not charged or anything. And if that hits you, it'll tick twice, and you're down. So if you don't instantly dodge roll the moment you get hit by that first piece of damage, you're done. Which frustrated me greatly because the whole game and the whole dungeon is teaching you to respond and dodge roll out of AoE, and then it changes the rule there and doesn't let you use what you've learned.
Now, I know that actually, you told me about that, and then either later that day or the very next day, Hunter was telling me about a dungeon that he ran, and he had an issue with these ice crystals that were spawning and regenning health on a boss, and what ended up happening was they couldn't kill him fast enough because there were either too many of these crystals and you're supposed to damage them down, or there were either too many crystals or there was too much health for the number of crystals on each crystal, and they were having significant issues actually clearing that because you have to just go insane DPS on the boss. And the interesting thing is there was an article, or not an article, but a series of posts by one of the developers who's working on tuning the dungeons and fixing sort of the difficulty balance. And the dungeon that you mentioned and the dungeon that Hunter mentioned were both 2 very specific examples that he used. Actually, they were the 2 examples he used as explorable mode dungeons that were not working as intended. They weren't fair within the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we just happened to have the bad luck of...
You both picked them.
Someone wanted to go out the front door. I
Yeah,
wanted to
but
take the teleporter, but I...
Yeah, they can all blame me, but someone else voted for the front door as well. So.
Works. Sorry.
Oh.
No, I wasn't there at the other one. I guess that was probably Honor of the Waves explorable. So.
Yeah, I don't know which one that is.
It's either Honor of the Waves or I don't know which one it was. But yeah, it was pretty bad. Actually, no, it's Citadel of Flame.
They have ice in there?
Yeah. Or it's crystals. It's either ice or it's like whatchamacallit crystals. Searing crystals.
Okay. Have you recovered, Ryan?
Oh man, did you hear the harmonica?
No.
I heard a freaking harmonica just like out of nowhere, and then I look at Christian, and he looks off to the side like, what the piss? So I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna lose it. So I go out of the screen, I come back, and I lose it again while I'm still looking at the camera. Like, what do I do? Do I leave? And now I'm all sweaty and my nose is running.
That was my fault. I'd like to apologize. I didn't have my phone on vibrate, and and Swashbuckler Dan / Rabin was calling me. He's also messaging me on Skype, so there's probably some boop-oops from Skype in the audio now. I really need to put myself on Do Not Disturb.
No, I had a message.
Oh. All right. Well, that's all the news that we have for today. There is one thing that you should all check out is the Charizard post on Guild Wars 2. On there, the devs responded to it about whether or not a Charizard is a form of char or what's going on there. So you guys should check that out. And we'll be back after this short interim message. Not actually saying anything. It's just going to be a sign that pops up and it'll tell you what we're doing next. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about what adventures we've been having in Guild Wars 2 of late. I'm going to start by asking Cole, what have you been up to?
Mostly been on my Thief. Just done dungeons mostly on my Guardian, which was fun to go into a Raw, make myself pink, and then get disconnected by a thunderstorm. But then on my Thief, I've been doing some structured PvP with some of the guildies. And it's great because you go in there and obviously you can be partied up, but that doesn't mean you're going to be on the same team. Well, I'm never on the same team, so I get to fight everybody from the guild. And if I see the RO tag, you are who I am attacking. I don't care if it's the strategic one or not. I just want to fight you. So, yeah, I think I pissed some people off because next thing I know, it's like, RO, oh God, there's 4 of them. And they're just all on top of me. I'm like, so cool. Fortunately, I was a thief, so I could just dodge. That'll piss them off even more.
And even if you're downed, you just keep porting away.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Port, stealth. I need to get in on that. It'd be fun. It's also I find slightly annoying when you want to go in PvP with your friends. It's kind of hard to do so.
You can world versus world, but I mean...
Yeah, but I don't want that because that's just, well, one, we're always winning, so I don't feel like I'm much use. And two, it's not always the case, but most of the time it's Zerg v Zerg. If you're in a Zerg, you're okay. If you're not in a Zerg, it's not much fun.
I like that, Zerg v Zerg. Well, it's either Tri-World Combat or Zerg v Zerg.
Yeah. And
Zerg 2 options.
I did try some World versus World finally. First time I was in, spent about 6 hours in it. That was actually pretty fun. Because I discovered because I started using the Staff 5 skill for Necro, which is a fear. And so you'd have all of these enemies lined up on the wall, just like raining fire down. And I just walk up and be like, boop, there's a mark right there. And they all just go booking away. And I'm like, yeah. And so all of a sudden, like all the firestorms and everything that are being cast down on us just go away. And I'm like, yeah. And then they come back like 2 seconds later. But it's totally worth it. It's great.
If you're a Necro and a thief steals against you, like he shadow steps to you, he's going to fear you. So get ready to taste your own medicine.
Well, the group I was fighting at the keep finally figured it out because all of a sudden Mark started just encircling me as other Necros started dropping like the fear mark. And that was still awesome.
Reminds me of an idea we had running through
Crucible of Eternity story mode.
Yeah, that's right. With the Mesmer Ultimate.
Yes.
I always use Time Warp because it's amazing. And we've comboed it a couple of times actually in dungeons with the Thief skill Dagger Storm. Is that the actual name or do we just call that?
No, well,
yes, Dagger Storm.
Yeah.
And so, because what then happens is, and we had 2 thieves in one dungeon, and you hit like 25 stacks of confusion on everything almost straight away because the combo field, and they're spinning twice as fast, so the projectiles are all firing out twice as fast. So we just called it awesome. because that's what it was. And so then we had Borks was asking why he wouldn't be able to have time warp up all the time because his quickness is so good. And so I thought, well, if you want that, 21 mesmers will do it. So we thought, what if you ran round of World v World and had 21 mesmers and just camped at a gate and just had that quickness bubble up all the time, whipping away at the gate.
Well,
And they all have to
you're
have
talking about
suckers.
21 live mesmers?
Yes,
Yes.
you need
Yeah.
21
All their
characters.
illusions also?
Exactly, and then
Oh,
if they've
balls.
got Scepter, and it looks like there are 63. No, the before it, so like 80 odd people at this gate. So it looks like there's this huge, massive Zerg, but they're all just 21 mes. Well, 21 still.
It's all just purple and butterflies, which makes it even better.
Yeah, we just thought that would be even more awesome.
You guys need to get PIG to do that.
21 mesmers is difficult, but
It's-
yeah.
No. Well, they'd all have to be level 30 for the elite. Otherwise, 21 mesmers isn't that hard. You just just roll one and hop into World v World. You're level 80.
If Team Legacy is watching this or Tales of Tyria,
Oh, Team Legacy.
get on that, make a video of it. You have the resources. Oh.
So that was the idea we had. As for what I've been doing, I've not spent as much time on my mesmer anymore because there aren't really many dungeons that I'm interested in for the tokens. So while they're still kind of in a rough state, I'm not that motivated to do any. So I picked up my Guardian and Thief again. I've been pushing them through, and they're both around the level 30 area, which is cool. My Thief used to frustrate me, but now she doesn't anymore because I just threw like all my trait points into Shadow Arts. So I have some defense. And I really like that trait tree actually. It's fun. I have some ideas for it.
What have you been up to, Spirit?
I've been working on an elementalist. I just took him up to. He's a Sylvari, level 31 or so. I just got my first elite. I don't know. I've got sort of a gripe with it because there's no underwater elites at tier 1. So I don't even know if Tornado, which is the tier 2 elementalist elite, is usable underwater. I didn't think it was for some reason.
It wasn't
If it isn't,
initially.
Then they've changed it so that it is.
If it isn't, then I have no underwater elites, which would really upset me. But even if it was the case that it would cost me 50 skill points at level 30 to have an elite that I could use underwater, which is highly frustrating. But I'm enjoying the class as a whole. After taking a Thief to 80, I feel like I can do a lot more. The Thief is so much. I can do damage, or I can do damage in a different way, or I can ninja res. That's about all I can do for you as like a party. But with the elementalist, I feel like I've got a lot more versatility in terms of I can stack bleeds, I can blind, I can heal, sort of ish, kind of. I don't have all my traits in yet, but once I do, I feel like that'll be a lot more of a viable option. I can't be a full healer, but I can contribute more. And fire is just so much fun. I'm just having a blast dropping giant dragon fangs on people's heads and exploding them and lighting innocent rabbits on fire as I run past.
Oh no. Those poor rabbits, what did they ever do to you?
They stood between me and an achievement, so I killed over 1,000 of them.
You are a terrible person.
Got some points out of it.
Yeah, achievement points. I did the World v World. I've been trying to play the trading house, except I'm really, really bad at the trading post. I mean, so I love reading, the various trading post sites and trying to figure out what's going on there and how this all works. And I found a few okay things, but my return on investment, I'm not very good at figuring that out. So I think the most gold I've ever had at one time was like 8 gold. And then half of it got burnt trying to make more and failing horrifically.
Well, if
So-
Chaz played the damn game, you could consult him. You're sitting here talking about ROIs, he'd be like, oh, what that means.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd like to increase my ROI, my return on investment, pretty significantly, but I haven't really found anything it basically changes probably. You'll find something for about 4 days, and you take advantage of it there, but there's going to be the point during the transition where you're probably going to either end up losing money or when to pull out, and I'm having trouble figuring out when to pull my money out of the market. Thanks, Spirit. It's a wonderful expression.
I can't take
I was looking at the question and then I realized, wait, Spirit was the best. Oh, yeah. There we go.
I am only 75% of the problem.
Inappropriate humor brought to you by...
Experience with the trading post. I sort of read some of the articles and had a look to see if I could sort of work something out. And I understand how, in theory, it works, and then how you would apply it. And then when I look at it, I go, well, the opportunity isn't there right now. So it's also a lot about time. It's so much about timing and the time of day as well.
Yeah.
For example, I was just looking at the unidentified dies because they were kind of saying there's so much turnover there. And you can always sell an unidentified die for around 5 silver. That it's almost better just if you got the die that you want, sell your unidentifieds. But the price kind of fluctuates between 4.5 and 5 silver. So the idea would be to buy low, sell high, obviously, which is most of the time what you do when you flip. And it really comes down to being there at the right time of day and being in there quick, because there are so many people on the auction house and on the servers that prices, when that kind of opportunity pops up, it's there for 10 minutes tops, and then it's completely destroyed because everyone has mobbed that. Like butter went back down to 2 copper.
Right, when they got rid of those.
Yeah.
Those new recipes.
Dropped the value, and then once it hits no value, suddenly it becomes popular in terms of trading because people just flip.
Right.
Which is the idea being you do buy orders for 1 copper and then you do sell orders for 2.
Right.
Which currently works.
Okay. I tried that. The profit margin is minuscule.
Yeah, because you need such large quantities to actually
right.
generate.
You have to be selling like 10,000 a day. 10,000 butter a day. You have to be a butter lord.
Lord Butterfield.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's... Yeah, so I've been working on a few other things with that. One of the tools that I use... Have I mentioned Guild Wars 2 Spidey at all? It's GW2 Spidey, SPIDEY.com. It essentially... someone has a character or something logged in, and they're constantly scanning the auction house and figuring out what the value is. I think it's once an hour they go through and hit everything on the auction house. And they get all these data points. And they have basically charts that track, since Guild Wars 2 launched, the price of all of these items every hour, 24 hours a day. And it's a great website for tracking that and seeing patterns. The only problem is the game's been out for a month. The trading post has been down for like half of that.
Yeah.
So the numbers aren't that usable right now. Like, they'll give you some general ideas, like certain commodities are getting more and more expensive, others are dropping in value, and you can see that just by looking at the auction house. But it's going to be interesting because in games like WoW or any other game, almost all of the stuff that you're supposed to be buying is the mods, the runes, the sigils, and that sort of thing. And right now, there's only a few of those that can even approach making you money, and even those aren't worth the mats that go into them. So you can't just buy up mats and then sell them on the auction house, and then craft this thing and sell it. I mean, that's how I made tens of thousands of gold in WoW when I was doing that. I was playing WoW like an hour a day. That was it. Just log in, buy up mats, craft stuff, resell them. I was really bored with WoW at that point in time. But I made about 80,000 gold over about a month and a half, which isn't much compared to the people who really know how to play the markets. But you could actually buy mats, make something, and then resell it for a reasonable amount because most people didn't have maxed out crafting professions. In Guild Wars 2, that's less of a case because people they don't need all of these things to run the content. Whereas in WoW, you pretty much wanted to have the top-end XYZ thing. So as long as I had top-end recipes, I could sell them. In this, it's less of a value add, which is interesting.
Comes back to pretty much everyone who's level 80 probably has 400 crafting in at least one profession.
Right.
And then everyone always talks about the fact that everyone is a gatherer as well.
Yeah.
So those all those things add up. I just popped onto Guild Wars 2 Spidey and noticed they do the gem exchange rate as well, which I've been
Yeah.
keeping track of on a daily rate, which is cool. And they do exactly the same format on the graph as I do. They have the actual price at a point and then the average, the daily average. I've got actually average since launch, so it's much slower.
Well, they actually get the two charts are actually not daily average. It shows you the buy price in gold and the sell price in gold. Oh, do they also have they added average as well?
They have two lines. There's a blue line, which is the raw data at any point, and then the red line, which shows the daily average. And that kind of, it's just smoothing out basically the raw data.
Oh, they updated it. Oh, now they've got it's been they added that in like the last week or so. Okay. That's very cool because it's got the top blue line and then the lower blue line, which is the buy and sell, and they've got the. Oh, that's clever. Okay, I approve. Oh, that's very cool. So you should definitely check that website out. It's amazing, and it's almost as good as the Undermine Journal was for WoW. Hopefully, someone will create something that is. If you haven't seen that, go check that out just to be amazed at what that site is if you like economy. UndermineJournal.com. Anyways, that is what I've been doing, aside from occasionally playing Shongoku and running around as a necromancer trying to kill things. And I've been leveling up a elementalist, and I got Guardian. I played a Guardian, which I did a little bit of role-playing with that, because I have my Norn Guardian as a bodyguard of this other character who my friend plays. And so we role-played a little bit, which was hilarious and weird. Well, not weird. I enjoy role-playing. Some people think it's weird. And one of the things that I discovered was the number 4 skill on the Guardian Hammer, which I've mentioned before. That thing is hilarious.
Yep.
It's perhaps my second favorite skill aside from Doom Chicken Charge, because it's essentially, it's Doom Chicken Charge. The Doom Chicken Charge will launch people if they hits them at the very end of the charge. So if you time everything right and they charge and they get right to the end, they do this little, it does its little thing with its head that sends the guy flying if it's right at the end. Otherwise, they just sort of fall over to the side. But this thing, it just sends them skipping across the ground. It's amazing. Someone recommended that I should go and hit some scale with it and see if I can skip them across the water. Because if I can do water skipping, that may become one of my new pastimes in Guild Wars. So, alright, that's what we've been up to. We're going to move on to another section, which is Speculator's Corner. So we'll be right back in a bit. Welcome back, and welcome to Speculator's Corner. This week's topic, what might the next race for Guild Wars 2 be? Or species. I think it's technically species, although usually they say race. So, Spirit, what's your opinion?
I really would like to see the Tengu as a playable race. I actually have some reasons I don't think they would be, but I still want them to be it. The main reason being we haven't seen any female Tengu, which is odd considering in Guild Wars there were Sora Honorclaw, I think her name was the leader of the Tengu on Xingzhai Island, and so we know that female Tengu have prominent places within the species, but where the heck
she was a noob.
Except no, you have to play through the Togo's book and make him dance and all the other stuff. But yeah, so we haven't seen any of them out and about, and I feel like if they're gonna make Tengu a playable race right away, we would have seen female ones. It just doesn't make sense to make a male model and then, or I don't know. There's other reasons for it. Maybe they weren't ready. I don't know. But I would like to see it. There's definitely, if you look around the wall, it perfectly frames like a capital city and zone-sized starter area for the Tengu. I'm 100% certain we're going to see something there, whether they're playable or not, and I sure hope they are, because there's so many cool things they could do with plumage, feathers, crests, beaks, whatever you want. There's a lot of customization options there. I feel like they're a great candidate for them, but I don't know if we'll see them.
With Sora Claw though, in Guild Wars they didn't have different models for the male and female Tengu, did they?
No, but I remember when they were talking about the Char, they said one of the important things for playable races is they have to be somewhat sexually dimorphic. You have to be able to tell the difference between male and female. It was an issue with the Char, that's why they have fluffy tails, the more sleek feminine features.
Yeah, and I thought I'd heard talk about female Tengu, the difference at the moment between male and female Tengu being that male have more extravagant plumage, following on from a lot of the tropical birds and how that works. Which, of course, in nature, you have both cases. You have extravagant female plumage and extravagant male plumage, depending on the species.
Yeah,
But that's kind of my thought as to why maybe there isn't that huge difference at the moment in models, is that they can get away with it to a certain degree with plumage. And then if they do carry on, then they can maybe develop
So you're saying, like, there could be female models we just don't know because they look similar?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, at the moment, they could be female characters, NPCs there, but not as identifiably as if they had made them a playable race.
I suppose, but I don't know. All the voiced ones have male voices, so, and a lot of the Tengu are voiced. They'll have idols or whatever. Actually, there's a really amusing. If you go to Caledon, there's a skill point with, I don't remember his name, Swift Arrow or something. If you linger in that area for a while, there's some interesting and quite amusing dialogues between a guard and I forget his name, but those ambient dialogues are just wonderful. You can listen for them.
Well, speaking about the differences between male and female, another race that a lot of people talk about in terms of being playable is the Codan, and they also only have the difference in voice acting right now, don't they?
Yeah, they do have female Codan, but they're only different in voice acting. So,
which can sometimes be slightly, I don't know, for some people maybe a bit difficult to identify, given that they use deeper voices as well.
Mm-hmm. I don't see the Codan ever being a playable race. It's just my personal opinion. I don't see them. They're too Norn-like. They're just bears for me to like differentiate them as their own. I would like to see them get more. They're interesting. I'd like to see maybe a capital city for them, but I just don't feel like they'd be playable. They've got their big ships, the city icebergs.
So what race do you think would be more likely then to be the next playable race, Spirit?
Tengu, absolutely. They've got the zone framed out. They've got several different entrances in them that are conveniently blocked off. The mysterious landslides. There's a door into Keswick's Hills randomly that just, I swear it wasn't there in the beta. I think it just appeared, but I could be wrong. There's entrances into Caledon and Lion's Arch as well. It's perfectly plausible that they would be a playable race.
So, Christian, what do you think? You think it's...
Well, I'm agreed on the Tengu. It's hard to argue against that. The Codan, I'm also very interested in, and again, it's tricky to speculate whether they'd be playable. I kind of would like to see them though as a playable race. I'd play a Codan.
So, if you could, what race would you really like to see made playable?
Man, I don't know. I think for laughs, I'd just like to see the Grawl. Just because.
Oh man.
I'm jumping up and down now.
If
you're not watching.
Yes.
Just because they're so comedic, and obviously the trouble is they're not particularly intelligent right now, so they'd have to leaps and bounds a little of the way.
Azura experimentation.
So, like the way they bounce around, it's like, yeah, I'm a Grawl. Wee.
Oh. So I'm thinking Skrit would be an interesting one, but because of their intellect in numbers, they'd have to go with an alternate HP system. And basically you get a group of Skrit that you control, and as you lose HP, your Skrit start getting downed, and you have to and players have to come help res them. So when you're completely down, you've got like 10 Skrit on the ground just laying there like, oh no! And when you level up, like every 10 levels...
I would get
Yeah.
mad. I wouldn't res any script players. No
You're like,
way.
I'm out.
Like, no, there's 10 of them. I'm not taking the time.
Multi-boxing mesmer spit. Oh man.
It's all you get like 40 script just charging across an SPVP.
That's actually only 4 players. Or
It's
even
all-
1 player.
That would be amazing. So I don't think that would happen, but I think that's how you would actually have to do script. I do know that there are games where they have done the group races where you basically control 3, like it's 3 characters, and then they do that with little furry races fairly often. There's a lot of Korean MMOs that have that, where you get like 3 of them at once, and you control them. And so that would be interesting. Or basically you get
about like different game mechanics and how really irritating it'd be. Like, can you imagine doing jumping puzzles as a posse of script?
well, you could do it.
everywhere.
No, they're just all lined up.
Jumping in the traps. There's like on fire running around, and then there's spikes through another half of them. It would just
So it would be just like watching the script do anything in the game.
pretty much.
You do it Overlord style. Have you guys played that game?
No.
You have the Overlord, and he finds all these little goblins. Then he like sends them in, and they like go charging in to do things, and you get different types of goblins that do different things. And
Sounds like Pikmin, but more
Actually,
dangerous.
Picturing that script doing a jumping puzzle reminded me of Lemmings. And basically, if you're a script, whenever you do a jumping puzzle, it turns into Lemmings.
and all of these script follow you in a line.
Yeah.
And so
Oh.
instead of being like a nice little circle or whatever they normally are,
No.
they turn into this line of script, and they're just hopping.
You have to put up the blockers and they're like,
That could be interesting for your racials. You could have different formations of script that
Oh.
do different various effects.
The elite script racial, they all just turn into a circle and like or lightning into one
They
of them, and he
assemble,
does
they
like a
stand on each
super
other's
attack.
shoulders and assemble a script transformer.
and then to become this giant amorphous blob of tumbling script.
Script wheel.
That'd be amazing.
So, what's your racial elite? Oh, we all jump into a big ball and just go rolling at things. It's amazing.
We crush our enemies.
Literally. And then take their shinies.
And then take. So you would have, if you played a script, you would also have like a passive magic find bonus.
Yes.
Oh. good
Everyone
call.
would play script.
Well, except for the fact that it would be a plus shiny find, so you would have a high chance to find magic, but you would never find like white items. You'd find only like gray items or magic items, no whites. And it's a high probability to get gray because they're just like, ooh, random thing.
Yeah. Stop.
So there you go. Oh, Cole. Now you said you had something up your sleeve for this one. So what do you think is going to be the next playable race?
What I think will be is I'm with everyone on the Tengu, and I wouldn't be too averse to the Kodan either. But if I had to choose a species that I would want to play as, there's some talk about they found someone accidentally fell through the world or something in the water, and there was a dragon's face there, and they're calling it Bubbles. So if there's a campaign coming up where there's a lot more underwater stuff going on, I'm gonna go with the Largos.
Oh.
You're a good fighter. That would be good. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Largos. Explain them for our viewers because they don't show up very much. I think there's like 4 Largos in the game right now.
Yeah,
There's
I've
some,
only seen 2.
I know for a fact there are some in Mount Maelstrom underwater. There's an event in Snowden where Largos attempts to assassinate a Kodan, which is pretty major. And then also late in the storyline, I don't even think there's a way to avoid them late in the storyline. You'll see one before you finish the game.
Right.
Yeah,
And I think there's one in Caledon Forest that's killing some Wild Hunt members.
Really.
Yeah, there's a it's if you walk through Caledon Forest, it's either Caledon or Brisbane. It might be Brisbane. It's Brisbane Wildlands actually. And it's the event where there's like 4 Wild Hunt members that are going along doing their thing, and all of a sudden they just start screaming, and like one of them gets killed, and then another one gets killed, and this thing is just teleporting all over the place, and you have to fight it and try and kill it. and it turns out that it's a Largo assassin. Whatever. Largos.
They look like a winged creature almost. They look more like a manta ray creature. They're people, but their faces are like a little scary almost.
They're wearing a mask all the time, aren't they? Or do we see
Yeah.
them unmasked?
That was a mask?
It's an air.
They seem to be, it's like the reverse of our water breathers. They wear one when they're on land.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can see them when.
I don't think we've seen one without it,
Or
though.
do they? Are they the same way underwater?
Because I've encountered one underwater.
I think
and
they wear
was
it
the
under.
same.
That's the way I interpret it. Is they're just reverse.
They may not be able.
Filters.
It could translate for them. Like maybe they can't produce human sounds, and so
That's
in
cool.
order to do that, they.
I like that explanation. They've got, I don't know. They're
'Cause
not.
Yeah, they have some Magitech.
Okay, so the Lagos, they seem pretty cool and mysterious right now, but my kind of big problem is, so they're an underwater creature, right?
Yeah.
So why did you give them butterfly wings?
It looks like manta. Well, those are kind of. So
Well,
I've got her pulled up right here. I'm looking at it.
The manta, I would have, manta ray would have made more sense to me, or flipper type thing, but butterfly wings, I just think they're underwater goth moths.
They look like they're manta.
It's so true.
Now that you mention it,
I think they're
from the manta ray perspective here.
they're pretty thick though, so I think they're muscled. I think they're an entire. Whereas a butterfly wing is rigid and that it is definitely more manta ray-esque as far as the fact that it allows them to ripple underwater.
Well, for me,
like
it's
a
the shape.
decorative fin. Very decorative fin.
Well, except I think they could probably book with it.
Yeah, for me, the shape is kind of what. It doesn't look underwater in terms of shape. The thickness, the leatheriness, that I understand, but the shape is very much butterfly-esque.
Yeah, that wouldn't help them in the water. Reality.
That's kind of my problem. But then, hey, there are so many holes like that you can pick into this game.
Plus, ArenaNet likes butterflies a little bit, mesmers and all that.
With ArenaNet, it's basically like, if it's cool and we want it in our game, we're gonna put it in there because hey, steampunk ogres.
That is kind of cool, actually. I like the steampunk ogres.
I've never really gotten used to them. They're in the game, so they're there, but I still go, what?
It's an InQuest experiment.
I feel like.
It's a parallel
is it an
universe.
InQuest experiment?
Oh, it's a parallel universe? What?
Yeah, they start talking about there's an Asura storyline where you accidentally oops a portal and then it opens up an alternate dimension and these things start pouring out, which I don't know, I felt like it was okay in the Asuran story, but then I started wandering through, was it Lornar's Pass where they all are?
Lornar's Pass,
There's a major meta event where steam creatures are just taking over. I'm like, where did you come from? You don't belong here.
Oh, there is a portal.
I think it was more of that we made these really cool things for this one story, but we feel like we can't just leave them there, so we have to put them somewhere in the world.
There could be
make sense.
There could be another thing too with that, in that they might be playing off the multiverse that they've set up with world versus world and everything. So there's more multiverses. There's more to the multiverse than just our servers, which are Tyrion-esque. So that could be. Christian, you look like you.
Shoehorned a little bit, and with the mists and that kind of aspect of the multiverse, the mists for me was just, it's that self-contained separate place where there's the underworld, the Fish of Woe, the PvP battlegrounds, and World v World. That's all contained in this separate otherworldly parallel weird space that you get to. Maybe it's the space between portals. And
actually,
and as opposed to the multiverse, I don't really care about the fact that there are 26 other servers that are in different states of the world. So
I wrote a short.
It doesn't need explaining for me.
Yeah, I wrote a short story called "Travel" about a Azura that is essentially possibly based off Doctor Who. Cough. And he talks about, at least my theories for how the multiverse works with the mist. The mist seem to be more like the glue that holds everything together, the space between realities. And for me, it seems like Space is like an indentation within the mists. And so you have like the underworld and all that sort of stuff. But that might be just going too far out there and thinking too much. But I have a 45-minute drive to work every day. I get to think about things.
That is. What I would like to see more, though, than a new species but this does relate to races still, is so the personal story is good, especially when you get toward the end. In the past, I've criticized it, but I admitted it was just beta. It got better. One of the problems is, though, let's take SOTOR, for example. As far as storytelling goes, those guys are the bomb. They're just not for MMOs. So, one thing I loved about that game was that your character could have depth. When I've made a character in an ArenaNet game, it was really, as far as morality and motivation, it was always the same guy. He's always virtuous. He's kind of just run-of-the-mill good guy. What I want to see in an upcoming campaign is possibly the ability, maybe this would only happen for one race per campaign, or all of them. I would say one race per campaign. They open it up so that if you have a character that is at 80 or has reached some benchmark of that race, you then use that character at some 80 content storyline where you somehow cause somebody from your race's evil factions, so for the Charts, Flame Legion, for the Sylvaria, it's the Nightmare Court, you somehow get involved with something to do with them and you cause one of them to defect. And then you can make that character. So then you can have a character that has a whole different background and actually has some edge to them and is not just good because I'm such a good guy. Instead, it's kind of this really anti-hero type of character. I want that in a bad way. So if they did that, yeah.
I don't know if, that's necessarily, I don't see that coming from Arena. I mean, it's a really cool idea and I would love to see it implemented. I just don't see them doing something. I know they are looking at changes with how the story works. They mentioned, there was a thread on the forums, I think it was called Why Char Have the Best Story. It was something to that effect. And it really hits on some of those things. And they were talking about how, especially with the stories, there actually were not writers embedded in the story team. Because ArenaNet's writers are so good. We talk about the ambient audio and how, that's so funny and good. But the story aspect was planned out by a storytelling team. And then the writers just kind of copy edited it. They're already, one of the things they said is that we're gonna put writers on the team, or they're at least gonna be embedded somewhat in it. So you're gonna see a change in I think story quality. I think the writers are amazing and they'll really help with some of that issue where the characters were kind of a little bit flat and bring out that depth a little bit more. I think that's definitely a positive change. They were talking about possibly changing the cinematics where, I forget what they call them, but the two characters
the
are
class
next to each
2
other,
or whatever, or level 2 cinematics. Yeah, level 2.
I think Shongaku was talking, but
I am. Can you hear me?
So anyway.
Okay, they can hear me. We're good. Yeah, level 2 cinematics, I believe.
Actually, that reminded me of something I could have brought up earlier when we talked about what we were doing. I switched my audio to German just to see what it sounds like and to have a listen to the voice actors. And this is partially probably because German is more novel for me in terms of form of entertainment. I speak and understand German fluently. But I became a lot more engaged in the story suddenly, listening to it in German instead. Which, I mean, the voice acting was really good as well. So that helped. And then it's hard to tell whether it's purely because the voice acting is a lot better for a lot of the characters, and whether it's the novelty of actually paying attention in German as opposed to in English.
Yeah. What were you going to say about the level 2 cinematics, Spirit?
Oh, they were looking at potentially altering the way that those go because people haven't been receiving them as well. I feel like in some cases they work, but you lose a lot of the depth. Especially, one of my bigger gripes has been I spoil it for myself because they have the text on the screen. I'd love to be able to get rid of that. I'm never listening. I always read it and I'm like, what? And then they're like,
skip.
but he killed him. And I'm like, I already knew that because I read it up here, and I totally lose that moment where you're supposed to realize that, the drama is gone.
And maybe that's also a bit why it's working better for me, because I've left the text in English so that I don't have all my skills named completely different and all the locations are different as well. And so I don't look at the text unless I don't catch what a word is. and so I'm kind of more engaged in what the person is actually saying.
Yeah. The thing that I've found when I've been watching the cinematics and then comparing them to SWTOR is you can't get a sense of character interaction because you have these swapping in and out characters, and what you'll have is maybe an Azura's lecturing you. But is the Azura just standing there? Is he sitting on a chair, leaning forward? What's his sort of stance towards you? Because he's just standing there and doing facial expressions. You can sort of get that, but you can't get his mannerisms in a movement sense. I mean, like, there's several points in time where I'm like, okay, so I'm seeing this Azura standing in front of like 30 people, just walking back and forth with his hands behind his back, just lecturing them about X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all standing there, and maybe you'll get some weird facial expressions from them. But you don't see that in the screen because it's him and you standing there. And you're just sort of staring at him like, what up? Just kind of staring at you.
One of my gripes is that I've been playing this male Sylvari. All of the Sylvari, they kind of go like this, and then they roll their eyes. And I'm like, you're being so sassy and disrespectful right now as he's talking to you. It's just kind of their idle thing. But it really irks me so much when they're just like, oh, I'm not listening to you. I'm rolling my eyes and back and forth like this.
And you can't get a sense of like actual it's not great in SWTOR, the animation where like two characters are interacting with each other, because usually it's like one hand hovering like a foot away from a person's face, and they're like, now I'm like patting you on the head or something like that. But you can get a real sense of how characters feel about each other by like, you know, a smack on the shoulder, pat on the head, that sort of thing. And you don't really get that in the scenes that you get from Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
The way that they've done it, I've seen done really well in Vindictus, but there's no motion and voiceover for that. In Vindictus, it's just the person pops up, there's the text, and then that person has an expression that is appropriate to how they're conveying the text. So if they're angry, then the text usually has a bunch of capital letters, because that's how you yell on the internet, and they have an angry expression. If they're happy or confused, that it works really well, because you then imagine the character talking to you, and you're using your imagination to do it. In Guild Wars 2, it's Uncanny Valley, essentially, because it removes enough of your imagination to negate what your imagination would normally fill in to the scene. If that makes any sense.
Nah, yeah, that does make sense to me.
Also, for a Shongoku rant, oh my goodness, why do they start killing everyone at the end of your personal story? Guy walks up. The guy walks up to me literally and says, hey, how's it going? I love my wife. My wife is the best woman ever. You really need to meet her after we finish this mission. I'm going to introduce you. We're going to go have drinks. It'll be great. She'll love you. I love you. It's wonderful. I'm like,
she's dead.
Dude, no.
Other way.
The other way, I was like,
yeah.
oh, dude, you just killed yourself, and I've got to do this with you for 10 levels? You're dead to me. Why am I even doing this mission? I know you're going to die. And at the end, he dies, and I'm like,
it's
and like this was like 30 levels of characters walking up and saying like blah blah blah, and then they go die at the end. And I'm like, so every time they introduced a new character, when they introduced Trahearn, I'm like, dude is dead. You'll have to finish the storyline to find out what actually happens to Trahearn, because it's, yeah. Oh.
If only we were so lucky.
What? Huh? No.
I actually like
So that's my rant about them killing people off, because it kind of, at first I was like, oh, they killed that person, because I really invest in characters easily, because it's just something that I do. They're like, in various games, they're like, this is your friend for X reason. I'm like, okay, that's how my character must feel about them. And then I just immediately, go into that mode, because I imprint easily, apparently. And so normally, but once you do this for like 3 stories in a row, I just had to laugh when the guy actually died, because
they're trying to invoke an emotion,
and it failed because of how they did it.
They could have done it
and weak, because there was no investment in that guy. I didn't even know who he was. I mean, Trahearn, because for 50 odd levels he's there, he's doing stuff. You may not necessarily sympathize with him or attach to him very much, but
right.
He's there at least, and we know who Trahearn is. That guy, I have no idea what his name was. He was a human. I know that much.
Oh, you had a human? I had a Azura.
Oh. Well, maybe it is
Oh
different.
no, that's another one. That's another one. He was cool.
Oh yeah, I do remember him.
Yeah, see, I love these. I liked him because, he developed sort of this nice rapport, but even though I was kind of liking him, I didn't feel bad when they killed him because I knew he was going to die.
Yeah, it's so
caught that with
snappy the way it happens as well. It's like you see this cool character, you pick up on it in one quest, and then the next quest almost is when shit goes down.
Yeah.
At the very least, they could do it with the decency of putting a red shirt on him. That way, we know.
And one thing that also disappointed me, since it's apparently Shongoku ranting now, is the characters don't stick around much. And I can kind of understand why, but I mean, you get Traherne, and he's around, and you get, like, your racial iconic, which is, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Destiny's Edge after this, but that's just me. And so those are the only two characters that really stick through your story, and it's like, it's your iconic, and then it's Traherne.
That was one thing they brought up in the why the Char stories are better threads, because you accumulate through the Char story. You start out, you pick a warband member who survives the initial mission. Your warband is wiped out except for the one you choose. He sticks with you, and you accumulate at least 2 more warband members of your choice that you recruit. They stick with you until level 30. They're with you all the time. They've got dialogue. They've got excellently written dialogue. They're funny. They're great. Playing a Char was definitely one of the better stories, and that was one of the reasons they put out there for why it is, because your character sticks with you and you interact with them so much.
Huh.
I would have loved to see that for some of the other races.
Yeah.
My Asura could have had a crew. My human rescue, or one of her friends unfortunately did not, wore a red shirt or whatever. And then she did recruit 1 or 2 other people that I guess showed up in my home instance, but it would have been wonderful if they had come in and tagged along with me.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things with what SWTOR does is they build up your crew, and that would be an amazing thing for them to do. So maybe what they might want to do is move away from these single character storylines and move to a central storyline that everyone interacts with, but everyone gets a different crew built up. So, like, you maybe have 30 possible crew members, but you only get to pick 5 as the story progresses. And so you build up, like, this group that is your, like, elite strike force or something. That'd be amazing.
I even think if just that kind of group dynamic is pulled in a bit more, you can still have the story beyond 30 or beyond your choice of orders is the same for everyone, as far as I'm aware. So adding characters into your quests, I'm more easily attached to other characters because ArenaNet can control them, whereas I'm controlling my character, so I can do whatever the hell I want and be as aloof and detached from my situation. Whereas another character is easier to attach to, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and for example, I liked the characters that you interact with in the human. Every order storyline from like level 30 to whatever is different per race, or is it a racial storyline, or is it all unified? Like for Order Whispers, you have to go and rescue Demi. Does every race do that?
I don't know.
I haven't played. I haven't played more than one. My Elemental's just going fiery, so I haven't played him through Whispers as well.
But I presume because the Order representatives are your race, and they come and meet you. Like for the humans, there's Ihan for the Order of Whispers.
Yeah.
But
So
for the Norn, there's Ifwin. So you've got different reps.
But that's for the introduction to the Norn storylines. The Demi storyline starts after that when you're actually in.
So
so that might be unified.
That is the same for all the races,
Okay.
but then you've got after that is the storyline where you pick a lesser race, right?
Yes.
That one, I know the lesser races differ by the race you chose originally. You've got an option of 3, and those 3 will be different depending on your starting race. So I guess it's not exactly the same.
Which, by the way, those guys do show up in your home instance.
That would be nice if
I've verified that. And I went to my home instance the other day and went exploring.
I would love to see,
And so I've got all these Hecate just wandering around in the Salma district. And I'm like, that is awesome. I love the Hecate.
Yeah, what the heck? Should we maybe move this
Yeah.
speculation Shungaku rant onwards?
All right. Yes. I just like talking about the person. Anyways, so we were talking about.
Should we just move on into pro tips?
Yeah, we may as well. So we'll take a short break, and then we'll go, and then we will continue on with our pro tips section, and then the bar brawl, because the pro tips should be pretty quick. It's time for pro tips. Take it away, Cole.
Okay, so for today's pro tips, my Google Chrome is not coming up now. My computer's been giving me trouble. So priority gear on your Vigil tune. We have a way to do this?
Yeah. So I was frustrated because I accidentally picked Order of Whispers on my main tune because I was tagging along with someone else and wasn't really paying attention to the story. And suddenly it was all like, "Hey, you're now picking the thing. Please progress to the next story." And I was all like, "Whoop! Oh crap!" So I wanted to be in a different order, which means that I can't get the other order's armor right now. And I went on the forums to kind of complain, as people do. And in the thread I found, there was a suggestion or an example of how you can do it with weapons, which is also true with armor. So this is what you need to do. If, for example, you're in the Priory, but you really want the Vigil armor, because let's face it, they have the best armor. You need to get another toon who is in the Vigil and buy the armor on that toon. It will be soulbound on that toon. Then you will transmute it with fine transmutation stones onto any kind of crap white gear. It still apparently says that in the description that it's soulbound, but apparently it's not. Take all that white stuff, chuck it in your bank, hop on your other character, get your nice exotic gear that you want to, put the stats on, or just some crafted armor that you have, and transmute once more the Vigil stuff onto that.
But if that's
And
considered
apparently that
soulbound
works.
and it doesn't really work like it's soulbound, is that an exploit and could you get busted for it?
I'm not sure. I can't remember if there was a ANET dev in that thread or not, but to me it seemed, I don't know. I don't see why that would be an exploit because one, you need fine transmutation stones, which you usually have to pay money for gold, and two, you're gaining a skin.
But they might be trying to make it so that your choice of your order determines things like this, and it gives weight to that.
That's how it started, but it seems dumb because it's armor, not anything.
I agree, it's not functional.
Plus, lore-wise, I mean, the Pact,
Exactly,
you just...
Absolutely.
You're just standing there in, Cursed Shore, hanging out with your Vigil buddy, and you're like, you want to trade armor? You're like, sure, that armor looks cool, and then you guys just switch. It's cool.
My suggestion in that thread had been that you have a Pact requisition person in Fort Trinity, and I went so far as to say I'd almost be willing to pay as much as tier 3 cultural armor to get another order's armor on my toon. So yay, money sink.
Plus, PvP, you can actually unlock all 3 orders' armors for your PvP
that
toon.
As well. Yeah, so your PvP toon can have Vigil, Order, and Priory armor, but your PvE toon can't.
I doubt it would ever be a bannable exploit or anything to that degree.
Yeah.
But I can't say that I would be super surprised, though I wouldn't expect them to. I wouldn't be super surprised to see them say, no, we don't want you to be able to do that, stop.
Yeah.
Or just put in a bug fix that stops it or something to that effect.
The thing with the exploit side of things and the karma, the karma exploit that everyone knows about was that the intent of those players was to exploit. That's why they picked up 300 karma weapons, which are non-tradable items.
Right.
So what they were going to do with them, I have no idea, but it was clear from ArenaNet that their intent was that they wanted to try and gain somehow from this. In terms of, in an obscene amount. Whereas, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm saying it as, the exploiter always feels they're in the right. I feel like, also because of my circumstance being that I had no way to alter my choice, even though it was completely accidental. And it wasn't broadcast clearly because I was tagging along. I did the quest again on another toon, and it's very clear when you are the main character, you are now picking an order, this is being locked in, and you physically click on it. Whereas when you're tagging along with someone else, you get the grayed out dialogue box pop up, which you're not following, and you're not following the actions the person is taking because you're not yourself clicking on it. And then at the end it says, do you want to progress to the next quest? And I'm all like, yes, I do, because I figured the choice came at level 30, not at level 26.534 or something. So anyway, that's done.
All right, and Spirit, you've got a pro tip for us.
If you play a Guardian, purchase a Stairmaster and put it next to your computer so you can continually roll your keyboard down your stairs.
And there you have it. We're going to skip the bar brawl this week because we're running a little bit long on time, and we're just going to go to two viewer questions that we got. Viewer questions you can actually submit by either emailing us at relicsofwar@gmail.com or by posting them in the comments below this video, which would also work. The first one came from Zombie Sex Machine, and yeah, that's an interesting name. I almost feel like gacking myself out.
I know.
Try and keep your names appropriate, please.
Necrophilia?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a little bit. Yeah.
That his hobby?
Pretty sweet.
I don't know. So,
Gotta
what they say is, I would like to hear your thoughts on the legendary weapons in regards to the fact that from what I've seen, they are soul-bound instead of account-bound, which just pisses me off to the point where I don't even want a legendary now. So, what have we heard about that?
Spirit and I were talking about this, and I can't remember what exactly we concluded, so maybe she can.
I don't remember exactly what we concluded either. I remember we did talk about them being soulbound unequipped, so you could technically buy another one. I don't know who would make one and sell it with all that goes into them. You have to max exploration. You have to get so many crafting materials. There's 500 badges of honor, which come from kills in World v. World. There are dungeon things. You're not going to want to sell them if you do, and if you do, it'll be for an absolutely ridiculous amount. So I would be okay with them being account bound. I feel like I might go for more than one if they were account bound, but I'm not fussed enough to really have a strong opinion on it. I'm gonna be working towards one. That's no secret. It's a good long-term goal that I'm happy with, but
Is it a soulbound on equip or soulbound
Yes.
on who makes it?
it's soulbound unequipped.
Oh,
Which means that you could make it on one toon, chuck it in your bank, and equip it on another. Which I think, I mean, if that's possible now, then why not lock it in as account bound?
Mm-hmm.
Account bound on equip, maybe?
Well, there.
Yeah.
Because
Fair
I
enough.
think some people don't want the legendary. They'll just craft it and sell it to make like 100 gold or 200 gold in one fell swoop.
Well, they're
It
going
looks
to
like
I can't
make.
they don't
understand
want
why you
that
would
for
put
some
so
reason.
much effort into it and then
It's
sell
true.
it.
You're going to make a whole lot. You're going to have to sell them for a whole lot more
Yeah.
money than that, because currently
That's
the
true.
single component, so one component is worth 100 gold at the moment.
So it's going to
Plus-
be maybe like 1,000 gold for one.
I would say so, yeah.
So maybe that's why someone wants to sell it. Although who would be able to buy it? I guess maybe
But then I think there are better ways of
People.
making money than crafting
Yeah.
a legendary weapon.
it's really true.
Yeah.
All right. So I would personally hope that they be account bound, just because I want to be able to show it off regardless of what character I'm playing. Just to say, check it out, my account. The achievement for one is account bound. So
And of course, the level requirement on it means that you can't just roll into Shaymore with Twilight on your level 2 Guardian.
Right.
You have to do that on your
Although
level 80
actually,
Guardian instead, because
I
you can
think
do
you
that.
So
can
you can
transmute
be a jerk and kill
legendaries.
everything for all the noobs.
You can transmute legendaries. So what you could do
Ooh.
is transmute it
Oh,
onto a level 2 item, and then just keep transmuting it as your character leveled up.
yeah, which is what I'm doing now with some armor on my.
Yeah, I
got
took
some
like
exotic
level
gear and transmuted it down.
I took like level 70 armor and threw it on my elementalist with transmutation stones. It's very expensive to do though. Don't recommend it.
So
All
then
right.
the next viewer question is from Jamari Pickens, and they wonder if ArenaNet is still making and when they will push a console version of Guild Wars 2.
do
Which
you think?
reminded me
Yeah.
of all the kind of rumor mill that's always around as a result of the NCSoft investor calls that are made.
Those have been unreliable at best for the most part. I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where
That
they never deny console, or they always talk about the potential markets for products of NCSoft, and always kind of hint at consoles and blah blah blah, and people put 2 and 2 together and go, "Oh, is Guild Wars 2 coming out on console?"
there
And-
is potential for that, though.
Sure. My kind of skeptical view is they say those things because it's all about reassuring your investors, and if you tell your investors that you are keeping in mind a healthy and large market, being the console market, then investors stay happy, and that maybe this is an option for the game. Whereas the actuality of implementing that isn't necessarily being considered.
Yeah, ArenaNet has said occasionally that they are looking into it because they code most of their because the game's coded in C#, which is .NET framework. It does have that generic code that can be ported between different. You would need to tweak it, obviously, for Xbox performance, but it would be possible. And because there's so few buttons required to play it, you could almost say that that's possible. But I think we'd see it probably if it did show up like on the 720 or something from Xbox or the PS4. Probably.
Yeah, and then of course, you remember the Mac client, which was all like, "Hey, surprise!"
Yeah.
And then porting to Mac, if you're doing it the way they did, is simpler than console porting.
Right, because your control's very different, and the processor architecture is quite different. Although I'm not going to go into the coding behind it, but it is designed. The way that they code it is in a language that's designed to be ported easily between different types, like Mac, PC, Xbox, all of that. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not going to dismiss it because this game could probably sell pretty well on consoles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and finally, let's go ahead and close this out because we've been jibber-jabbering on for almost 2 hours now. Recorded time.
After all this, I saw a shawarma place just around the corner.
We never did mention that you ate shawarma around you just saw it.
Yes,
so
and we got to do this.
All right, we'll have to investigate that.
Hey, if we're closing down, there's 2 quick things I want to run through real quick.
Okay.
On our forums on the relicsofwar.com website /forums, you will find a topic that was created by my wife Lacey, who we were on our way home from our anniversary getaway this weekend, and we were talking about how we want to start a dungeon night. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate the purchase of, through influence, dungeon. What is it? What is it? Dungeon
influence boosters.
What does the dungeon booster do? More tokens or something?
More influence from the dungeon.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we're going to activate that at a specific time, probably before Friday, and then we'll also get the magic find going. Then once that stuff is live, then everybody we'll do it live. We'll all get on, and we'll divvy up some teams and stuff, and we'll go hit the dungeons hard on that night for Relics of War. We are also talking about doing something like that for World vs. World. Also, nothing is set in stone on what day or any of that because we don't know what time will work best for everybody. But this will be something to get people really interested in, give them something to do, especially right when the weekend first starts up.
Yeah, and if you're not on Emery Bay, which is our main server, you can still whisper Cole or Shongaku, me or Nexi, and or Spirit or Sea Squirrel. And because dungeons are cross-server, we can get you into a party.
A lot of people don't know that. They're cross-server.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds good. I had some ideas for trying to get something like a dungeon night running. So I'm
cool.
keen.
All right. And to finish off, do you have anything else, Cole?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. We will finish with the ever-popular Wheel of Morality. All right.
Wheel of Morality. Turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn script.
Before insulting someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you insult them, you're a mile away and you have their shoes.
Very good.
Right on.
All right. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.
Mm-hmm.